when Churchill met Lincoln. I sit here in this old house and work on foreign affairs, read reports and work on speeches, all the while listening to the ghosts walk up and down the hallway. The floors pop and the drapes move back and forth. Harry Truman, 33rd President of the United States of America. Truman was referring to the wandering spirits of the former residents of the White House before him, all since departed, but whose footsteps still echo in the rooms and corridors of the famous old building. The ghost of Andrew Jackson has been seen in the Rose Room and has been heard laughing and swearing as he stomps around the room. Thomas Jefferson, altogether a quieter spirit, sometimes plays his violin in the Yellow Oval Room, while William Henry Harrison, the first president to die in the White House, haunts the attic above. But none are more famous and unusual than the ghost of Abraham Lincoln, who has allegedly been seen by numerous witnesses and, it seems, has even interacted with some of them. Although he is said to have haunted the White House since his assassination in 1865, the first reported sighting of Lincoln was in 1927, when the First Lady, Grace Coolidge, said that she saw him standing by a window in the Yellow Oval Room looking out. During the Civil War years, Lincoln was known to often stand by that window, staring out towards Virginia. In 1942, Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands was staying at the White House when she heard footsteps approach her bedroom door, followed by a knock. When she answered the door, she was met with the unmistakable sight of Lincoln standing outside, in his trademarked frock coat and top hat. The sight caused her such a fright that she passed out on the spot. President Theodore Roosevelt also claimed to have seen the wandering spirit, as did President Reagan's daughter Maureen Reagan and her husband. The Reagan family dog, Rex, would often bark at the Lincoln bedroom, but refused to enter. A number of Franklin D. Roosevelt's staff also said that they had seen Lincoln's spirit traversing the White House. And Dwight Eisenhower, though he never saw the ghost of the president, said he always felt Lincoln's presence during times of crisis. And he wasn't the only one to say so. But the strangest of all the encounters was the one claimed by Winston Churchill. During World War II, Churchill stayed at the White House 4 times in all between 1941 and 1945, as he and President Roosevelt discussed war plans. The First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt, had chosen the Lincoln bedroom for their famous guest, but Churchill wasn't keen on the room at all, saying he didn't like the bed. At least that was the reason he gave. So after checking a number of other rooms, he settled on the Rose Room instead, now known as the Queen's Room. Late one night, after a long day of meetings at the White House, Churchill retired to the Rose Room, where he took a long soak in the bath with a Scotch whiskey and a cigar, a favourite way for him to relax. Now, if his real reason for avoiding the Lincoln bedroom was because he wanted to avoid the Lincoln ghost, he was in for a slight shock. Climbing out of the bath, he wandered into the living room wearing nothing but a cigar. I've added the Scotch and hat for dramatic effect. When he was startled to see the translucent spirit of the former president leaning by the mantel of the fireplace. They stared at each other for a moment. Not one to be stuck for words, Churchill quietly greeted him with the words, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have me at a disadvantage." According to Churchill, the 16th president smiled with humour, before slowly vanishing in front of him. So, if this account is to be believed, this wasn't just a residual apparition left over from a time past. There was a real-time interaction there between the two. That's the story as Churchill told it anyway. A lot of accounts wrongly place this incident in the Lincoln bedroom, but it happened in the Rose Room. The Lincoln room itself was never actually used by him as a bedroom. He used it as an office and cabinet room. It only became a bedroom during renovations in 1902, and the title of Lincoln's bedroom soon followed. A bathroom was added some time later. Sightings of the president weren't just confined to the White House. His spirit was said to also haunt a house in Loudonville, which was owned by one of the theatre-goers who had witnessed his assassination. His spirit has also been seen visiting the site of his grave. Claims have also been made that a ghost train has been seen following the route of Lincoln's funeral train from Washington to his final resting place in Springfield. This, apparently, only happens around the month of April, the month that he was assassinated. And he's not the only Lincoln believed to be haunting the White House. The ghost of his young son, Willie Lincoln, who died in the White House of fever, aged 12, has also been seen haunting the presidential residence. And there are others. Dolly Madison, the wife of President James Madison, has been seen tending the Rose Garden. John Tyler, the 10th American president, haunts the Blue Room. The ghost of Anna Surratt bangs on the doors of the White House pleading for mercy for her mother, who was involved in the Lincoln assassination. And an unknown British soldier from the War of 1812 patrols the grounds with an oil lamp in hand. Another unknown spirit is that of a 15-year-old boy, referred to as the Thing. This apparition terrified the staff of President William Taft to the extent that he threatened to fire anyone who continued to talk about it. And what about Harry Truman, who wrote about the ghosts of presidents past? Has he himself gone on to join them on their nightly vigils in the old building? Nancy Reagan, writing in her memoirs about the ghost of Abraham Lincoln, voiced a certain disappointment that she and her husband had never seen the famous ghost. Or maybe she was voicing a certain polite skepticism. Who's to say, she wrote, but if he is there, I wish we could have seen him before we left. As a footnote, there are a number of things about the Lincoln story that are worth mentioning. Little known but bizarre facts surrounding his assassination. For instance, John Wilkes Booth, the assassin, was actually a very famous theatre actor from a famous acting family of the time, and Lincoln already knew who he was and had even attended at least one of his performances. And he was well aware that Wilkes Booth did not like him. In fact, at one theatre performance, one of Lincoln's guests noticed the gestures and stares that were being directed at him by Booth. And when she commented on it, Lincoln replied, "Yes, he does seem to look at me quite sharply, doesn't he?" Another strange fact worth mentioning was that John Wilkes Booth's own brother, Edwin, also a famous actor, had actually saved the life of Lincoln's own son, Robert Todd Lincoln, just weeks before the president's assassination. Lincoln's son had fallen from the platform of a train station in Jersey when the train began to move. Seeing him fall, Booth quickly grabbed him by the coat collar and hoisted him back to safety. He had no idea who it was that he had saved, but Lincoln's son did recognize the famous actor. Booth only found out afterwards who it was that he had saved when a colonel wrote to him shortly before the Civil War ended to thank him. As an admirer of Lincoln, he had been devastated by the fact that his own brother had killed the president. The colonel's letter brought him a great deal of comfort, and when he finally returned to tread the boards again at the Winter Garden Theatre, he was greeted by a standing ovation. By the time he had retired, he was regarded as one of the greatest Shakespearean actors of his time. I did write an episode about this set of events, but the file corrupted and I lost it. It's a pity because a lot of research went into it, but maybe I'll sit down and pen a version of it again sometime. But in the meantime, good night, wherever you are.